and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan, and I have for you today a Gameweek 8 Wildcard team that I really hope you're going to love. Obviously, I played my Wildcard last week, but it is not too late to get in on the Wildcard action, and a lot of you guys are going to be thinking about it. So, this is the team I would be going for if I were to wildcard in Game Week 8. Hopefully you enjoy this one. If you do, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here, and let's have a look at this team. Starting off in goal, we have got Turner against Crystal Palace. Nice and cheap at 4 million. Turner looks like he is going to keep his place for the long term. Been playing pretty well, hasn't he? And Crystal Palace, not exactly a team that score too many goals. And in general, I do feel like Forest are a little bit of an underrated defence. I don't think they're conceding quite as many goals as a lot of people thought they would. So Turner, still a pretty good pick. Still picking up the odd save point here and there as well. And the next couple of fixtures are quite nice. We've got Luton in Game Week 9 there as well, which is pretty nice to have a player involved in that game as well. Moving into defence, we have got Kieran Trippier, first of all, pretty much a player on everyone's lips at the moment. The last few game weeks have been really incredible for him, haven't they? Really high scores there from him. So, yeah, hopefully more assists, more clean sheets, and more bonus points as well. That is the Trippier we know and love. It's like a throwback to the Trippier of last season where he was every game. It was clean sheets, bonus points, assists. Just what he does. So super creative player, and hopefully going to make a very good use of that high price tag, because he is quite expensive and not everyone is going to be able to afford him. But the benefit of a wild card is that you are able to try and fit him in rather than having to take -4s and multiple transfers to try and get him in. But you can do it on a wild card. One of the benefits. Next up, Matty Cash. He's got to go in here as well. Aston Villa have got a phenomenal run of fixtures coming up. So they've got Wolves next, West Ham after that, which is I guess not so great. But we got after that, we've got Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and then in Game Week 14, not long after that, we've got Bournemouth as well. So a really nice run of fixtures for Aston Villa, and I really would be looking to get in as many of their players as possible. Now, Cash, obviously, we know he has phenomenal attacking numbers, really strong attacking numbers that we can see. He's kind of getting the odd goal here and there, because he's got a couple of goals already this season. He's got an assist already this season. That happened just this game week, the last game week just gone, so that's pretty nice. And he's generating a decent amount of shots in the box. So he's a player really in a lot of dangerous areas, which I really like to see. So yeah, basically getting an attacker who's listed as a defender. So really nice to get those nice attacking defenders there. And I do think Aston Villa could maybe improve on their clean sheets a little bit, particularly in these slightly easier fixtures. And we're going to finish off the defence with Udogie, who I think is a good pick from here on out. He is a player who looks destined to get more FPL points. So far, he has got the odd assist, but he's always in those really dangerous areas, isn't he? And you feel like he could explode at any moment. He's a big haul waiting to happen, and we really do like those kind of players. He is getting more and more expensive as time goes on, 4.8 million now, so if you haven't got him already, it would be a good time to jump on him now. Luton and Fulham are the next two fixtures. Now, you would hope for a team like Spurs, they could keep clean sheets in those games, particularly with Vicario in goal, who is making a lot of saves, doing really well, been super impressed with Vicario, who I think is actually going to be a bit of a stats buster in terms of Spurs' defensive numbers and actually keep them in the clean sheets a little bit more than maybe predictive models can possibly predict there. So nice fixtures. Even after Fulham, we've got Crystal Palace, a low-scoring team. Chelsea, they don't really know how to score goals, and a couple of good fixtures after that. So for the time being, for the next kind of 4 or 5 game weeks, Udogie is going to be a really nice defensive pick for you, and I like the look of him, and I feel like a haul is coming. So will that come soon? Let's find out. In midfield, we're going to go for Mo Salah, and I feel like if you are going to go for a wild card, you're probably going to want to have Salah on it. And the reason is because Salah is probably going to be one of those super essential players from maybe game week 9 or 10 onwards. I don't think you have to have him necessarily for the Brighton game, but we saw Brighton against Aston Villa. Brighton have been showing cracks defensively for quite some time now. It might be now that they're actually going to get exploited a little bit and concede a fair few goals. And if it's anything like the Aston Villa game, Salah is going to do really well in this Brighton game. But no, like I said, after that, we've got Everton, Nottingham Forest and Luton. And this is really the run where you are going to want to have Mo Salah for. This is the really nice run of fixtures. So it might be that you can survive without him, but if you're on a wild card, you know you're going to have to transfer him in anyway at some point in the near future. So in that case, why not just do it now? And yeah, it's better than trying to make a plan of making multiple transfers to get Salah in. If you're on a wild card, just get him in now. I think that's probably the sensible thing to do that most people will agree on. I don't think Salah is absolutely essential, though, by the way, guys. I do want to make note of that. I feel like it's perfectly viable to make a wild card team without him, but for me personally, I would be including him. Next up, Heung-min Son. Now, this is a player who I would not be willing to go go about. I am going to just put it out here now, and hopefully people will start agreeing with this one a little bit more now than they did maybe a week or so ago. Son is the most essential player in the game, maybe outside of Erling Haaland. I really feel like Son is more essential in your wildcard than Salah. Put him in, particularly now we've got Luton and Fulham back-to-back fixtures. You need to get Son in your team. Do not go about him. Do not even think about it. He's playing as a striker, even with Richarlison in the team. Richarlison kind of playing off that left. Son is keeping his position in the centre, and he's doing so well there, and he's looking better each week. So you just know, a game like Luton Town, this could go absolutely crazy. He really, really could score another hat-trick in this game, just like he did a couple of weeks ago against Burnley. So, Son, put him in your team. Do not even think about going without him, but I'm sure most of you guys agree with that one. I would actually be looking to double up with Maddison here as well. I feel like Maddison was unlucky not to get more against Liverpool. I think if Alisson wasn't such a phenomenal goalkeeper, then Maddison, with a lot of the shots that he was taking and what he was creating in the game, he might have been able to get a goal or an assist in that game. Against Luton, it's going to be a different scenario, and I feel like Maddison is going to be another one of those players that really does haul. So I know he's getting a little bit expensive now at 7.9, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking on a wild card, you're trying to free up some budget. Maybe Maddison is one of the players you'd be willing to sacrifice. Totally get that, totally understand that, but for me personally, this fixture against Luton is set up for players like Son and Maddison. I feel that the upside is so high. Spurs are a phenomenal attack right now, and Maddison is a huge part of that. I just feel like these two players are just going to go off, and even if you actually end up taking out Maddison next game week, in game week 9, I still think it will be worth it making that extra transfer as long as you've just got that Maddison 1 week punt for this game week at absolute minimum. But he would be a player who I'd consider removing in the near future, but not right now. And I will cover kind of what kind of transfer plans you might have with this team very shortly after we cover the main players in the team first, and then we'll talk about maybe some slightly different players you can pick. But anyway, moving on, I'm going to put Diaby in here. A lot of you guys are going to be worried about Diaby's Dorito of death. Yeah, obviously he has got that warning triangle on his icon in the FPL website, on the FPL app. And I did mention this last week, but I will stress this again in a proper video. Do not get your team news from coloured triangles on the FPL website. Do not get your team news. Do not get your injury news from there. It barely tells even a fraction of the story. It's a coloured triangle. What can that really tell you? The reality is that from what we know right now, Emery literally said after the game that Diaby's, he came off, you know, he was like hobbling about a little bit. He had to come off, but Emery, after the game, literally said, it's not a big deal. He's absolutely fine. He'll be fine for next game week. Don't worry about it. Everything's good in the hood. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, of course, but for that to now translate to FPL, on the FPL website, he's now got a yellow triangle on his name, and a lot of people are panicking. That's a good thing for me and you guys, because for us, we know, we read the news, we kind of look up the data, and we have an advantage over a lot of people who will now be too scared to go for Diaby. And I know already, guys, go in the comment section right now, there will be a person who hasn't even watched the video, and they would have already commented by the time you watch this, saying, isn't Diaby injured? Isn't Diaby injured? Why are you picking Diaby? Diaby's injured. Because they won't have watched the video, and they won't have actually looked into this at all. So go find that comment and go have a little laugh at that one. I know I certainly will, because it happens every week. But yes, Diaby, from what we know right now, he's going to be absolutely fine. No worries there, and he is still, for me, the best midfielder in the 6.5 million range to go for right now. So I definitely would be including him in a wildcard team, as long as we don't get new news about his injury status. So Diaby looks really, really good, playing as that second striker, as we know, always in dangerous areas, always looking to take a shot or provide for his teammates as well. He's looking insane. Look really good again this weekend, and yeah, I feel like as the fixtures get slightly better against Wolves and even West Ham, to be fair, they haven't really kept too many clean sheets. Luton at home after that, Diaby is going to go off. He really, really could be really something special. And we are going to include Neto in this midfield as well. Yes, now that Man City fixture is out the way, that I thought was going to be a hard fixture, but I guess Wolves are a bit of a bogey team for Man City, aren't they? We've kind of seen that over the years. So maybe some people maybe expected that, others not so much. I thought it was a difficult fixture personally for Neto, but now that's out the way, and knowing what Neto has been providing, I feel like for his price, 5.6 million, he's probably one of the better, if not the best, midfielder in that price range, particularly with Gordon now suspended. Those of you guys who are looking to replace Gordon perhaps as well, looking for a direct replacement, Neto would perhaps be the player I would go for there as a like-for-like price, you know, similar price kind of replacement there. So Neto makes the cut as well. And moving up front, we have got Erling Haaland himself. Of course we have. Yeah, I know a lot of people are toying with the idea of taking him out of their FPL teams. I'm not quite ready to do that personally. Like, if you want to take out Haaland, you think he's getting a little bit too expensive, or if you don't want to captain him in future game weeks, that is absolutely fine. But it's not something that I would be willing to do personally. So I'm gonna leave that one. We're gonna have Haaland in this wildcard team, and yeah, if you want to change that, that's gonna be on you. And finally, let's finish off this team with Ollie Watkins, who is quite expensive at 8 million. I know this is going to be maybe a sticking point for a lot of people, and this team as a whole might not be affordable for everyone at 100.9 million. I am going to make some suggestions of how you can make this slightly cheaper as well if you need to do that. But Watkins is a player I'm sure everyone wants right now, and if you're on a wild card, you have that opportunity to get any player you like. If you can afford a team like this and to get Watkins in it, then you probably would take that opportunity. So why not? Again, like we know when I've spoken about those other Aston Villa players, phenomenal fixtures, looking really, really strong in attack. And Ollie Watkins, you know, he's been a consistent performer so far this FPL season. Is he going to get a hat-trick every week? Of course he isn't. Don't be silly. Watkins is not a player known for getting multiple returns in one game. He's kind of more of a one return per game kind of player. And I expect that's probably what we'll see more going forward from him, is one return per game. But I feel like we need to make a clear distinction. Is we're not, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, Watkins is such a knee-jerk transfer. You're just getting him because he just scored a hat-trick. I don't know, guys. I feel like a lot of us were already kind of toying with the idea of Watkins being a decent pick for these fixtures. He was already being spoken about. This is not a new thing. This is not a massive new trend or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. There will be a lot of people picking Watkins because he's done really well in last game week. But I feel like a lot of people were looking at him anyway, particularly for the losing game. I know for a fact that when I was planning a game week 10 wildcard initially, I was thinking, yeah, Watkins would probably be one of the players I pick because he has that Luton at home game. And if you're going for a wildcard now, be nice to get in ahead of the crowd a little bit there and get Watkins now, because people outside of a wildcard are probably not going to be able to get Watkins unless they've got a bit of money in the bank. And if so, they're probably going to have to make sacrifices elsewhere. But I appreciate that if this team is a little bit expensive for you, Watkins would be one of those players you could potentially replace. And I'll make a couple of suggestions very, very briefly. So let's go onto the bench, guys. And we have got Areola, 4.2 million goalkeeper there. He's got a nice fixture coming up in game week 10 against Everton. So that'll be a nice little rotation when Turner plays against Liverpool. You can play Areola against Everton. That works pretty well there. We've got a super cheap bench in general. Kabore here at 4 million. Taylor at 3.9. He seems to be the main man at left back for Burnley right now, and Mubama at 4.3 million. And yeah, this bench is weak. It's very, very weak. For me personally, I've never been bothered by having a weak bench. I'm absolutely fine with it. I would be open to upgrading it later down the line, later on in the season, if I find myself a little bit more budget free. But for some people, this is going to be a problem, and if so, you are going to have to make a couple of changes. And yeah, you're going to have to downgrade someone in your starting 11 to maybe create a little bit of strength on the bench. But for me personally, I don't care about having a strong bench. I know some of you guys are going to disagree with that one, and that's fine. We're all going to play our own game. We've all got our own strategies of how we like to play FPL, and yeah, there's definitely some kind of players you can throw on the bench if you downgrade some of your starting 11 players. So yeah, quickly, guys, I'm probably going to say captain's armband on Heung-min Son this game week against Luton. I feel like that's pretty obvious, although is it ever really obvious to go against Erling Haaland? I'm really actually excited this week to see who's going to be the most popular captains among our 100 experts in our 100 experts video on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that one. I want to see what the Son versus Salah versus Haaland captaincy numbers are going to be like. But I'm actually going to put the vice captain on Salah as well. So Haaland not even making the vice captain this week. It's an away game against Arsenal. Probably one of the toughest fixtures he's going to play all game week. And it's nice to have a couple of alternatives there in Son and Salah there. So that's where I'm going to put the captain and vice captain armbands on. And yeah, let's have a look now at how you could potentially change this team, kind of free up some budget, make some changes, and also what kind of transfers you might be looking to make in the future as well. So yeah, let's do that next. Okay, guys, so as always, we are on the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. Really, really useful planning tool for your FPL teams to get not just predictive points, but also suggested transfers and just planning out what kind of moves you can make in future game weeks, when you should be subbing and benching players, and this, that, and the other. Super, super useful. If you want to go check it out, you can do it for free. Link in the description right now if you want to go ahead and do that. It's the Fantasy Football Hub My Team tool. Let's have a look at what we could potentially do here. So, first of all, we need to talk about budget, because this is not going to be a team that everyone can afford. And for me personally, looking at this team, there's, unless you remove Salah or a Trippier, those are probably the only two players that you could, of the expensive players that you could really potentially remove. So unless you're removing those, and I'm not sure I would want to do that personally, so I'm going to leave those two players in. I would say there are two other players that could maybe be changed in the starting 11. And one of them is going to be Maddison, because I don't think Maddison is a long-term hold. I like Maddison a lot for the next 2 game weeks, but he's probably going to be a player that you remove in a couple of game weeks anyway. So in that sense, maybe he is a player who could be used to free up a little bit of budget. You can downgrade him to someone else. Looking through some of the suggested midfielders, judging by 4 game week predictions, you could maybe go for someone. Let's go, just drag this down so it's a little bit cheaper. Let's go down to, I don't know, like a 7.4 million or less. It looks like Eze is a decent pick there, and Mbumo, Sterling. We've obviously got Diaby already. But for me, even though Newcastle at home next is not the ideal fixture, I feel like if you want to free up 0.7 million, going Maddison to Bowen is actually a really nice pick. And just take him for a couple of game weeks. You're probably going to want to jump on the likes of Mitoma in a few weeks anyway, but I don't know if I'd want to actually own Mitoma for the next 2 against Liverpool and Man City. So maybe Bowen for a couple of game weeks, maybe for 2 or 3 game weeks, and then after that, you can maybe start thinking about switching over to some Brighton players there. So yeah, Bowen is a player I like as an alternative. You could maybe go for James Ward-Prowse as well, but yeah, Bowen would be my guy personally. But Watkins is also another player I think can be sacrificed, but that is more because I think there are genuinely some other decent options. It's not because I think Watkins is a bad pick. I think he's a very good pick, but at his price range, I think there's actually, you know, like I say, a couple of decent picks. So the players I would be looking at most closely would be, first of all, Darwin Nunez. So Darwin Nunez comes in at 7.4 million here. Next fixtures are Brighton, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton, and then we've got Brentford and Man City and Fulham after that. So Darwin, with Gakpo injured, with Jota suspended, Darwin should be nailed on in the short term at least. But to be honest, I feel like Darwin is first choice striker anyway. A lot of people will say, well, he didn't start last game week. Yeah, apparently he was carrying a really minor injury, which meant that he couldn't quite start that game in game week 7. So Klopp took the decision to leave him on the bench with the plan of bringing him on later on in the game to try and cause a bit of chaos. That was kind of the plan there. He is still first choice, but that injury prevented him from starting that game. But he should be fine within the next game week. But yeah, certainly that didn't go to plan anyway. Couldn't even come off the bench because of the obviously the red cards that Liverpool got in that game. That wasn't able to happen. So yeah, but certainly moving forward with injuries, with suspensions, and with the fact that Darwin should be fully fit and is first choice for this Liverpool team, good fixtures, and a player, whenever he plays, we know he does really well so far this season, he would definitely be on the cards, and he will save you 0.6 million. So that would be a really nice way of freeing up some budget there. Also, we've always got Alvarez. Alvarez is always going to be a player you can potentially go for as well. So a little shout out to Alvarez at 7 million. Definitely an option if you want to free up a bit of budget in that Watkins slot. That should take us under 100 million if you did it that way, which would work very well. And I'll give like a tiny shout out to Awani as well. I feel like he could be picked. He could potentially be picked there as well. Got Luton at home in a couple, well, next game week, not this game week, but next game week, which could be nice as like a little short-term punt potentially there. The only other player I can really think of is maybe Gabriel Jesus that I'd be interested in. There's probably going to be differentials outside of that, but not many players I am personally too interested in. So those are a couple of ways of freeing up some budget. Of course, if you want to upgrade the bench, I would probably take a Kabore or a Taylor up to a Dan Burn, a 4.5 Dan Burn. Maybe go for a West Ham centre-back as well, though not as keen on that one. But yeah, that's probably as far as I would go in terms of upgrading this bench. If you downgraded one of those players I just mentioned, downgrade Maddison, downgrade Watkins, and then upgrade probably, well, one of Kabore or Taylor up to the 4.5 Dan Burn. That's probably as far as I would go in terms of improving the bench, but some of you guys are going to want to improve it even more. That's absolutely fine. You know, Mubama to Archer, Cameron Archer could work as well. That's going to cost you an extra 0.2 million, but at least you get an additional forward that you can maybe have as a backup option sometimes, I guess. But yeah, it's going to all depend on your budget. Now, moving forward, guys, we do need to think about what kind of transfers we were to make. And if I'm wildcarding in Game Week 8, first of all, this would be roughly the team, as we know. Going to Game Week 9, I would make no transfers. I wouldn't even make any changes to the team. same team again. We possibly move the captain's armband over to Erling Haaland for this game, although maybe at this point we might have more faith in the likes of Salah and Son, so I guess we'll see on that one. But yeah, I would be leaving the team for game week 9, but going into game week 10 I would be looking to start bringing in some Brighton players. That would be the big thing for me. So I would be looking to possibly remove Maddison, and again, it's going to depend what Maddison does during this time, or possibly Trippier, and possibly Neto as well. I feel like Neto is just the cheap guy in this team, so he's a player who can always be sacrificed. But one player I would want would actually be a Stupinian. So we might actually have to do this. So this is one of the options I feel like is going to be popular. So you can have 2 free transfers by this point. You could maybe think about removing Trippier because he could play Arsenal the game week after this one anyway, which is not ideal. And he's quite expensive, Trippier, remember. So a Stupinian in for Trippier, that's going to free up a little bit of budget to maybe allow, and it's going to be, again, depend on your budget, upgrade Neto to a Mittelmer. And this is a potential thing you could do here. The alternative is to downgrade Maddison to a Mittelmer. That's probably going to mean it's going to be more of a struggle to get in a Stupinian, but you could maybe upgrade Udogie, or yeah, probably would be Udogie to be fair, up to a Stupinian there. So you kind of have 2 choices. It would either be Trippier and Neto to a Stupinian and Mittelmer, or it would be Maddison and Udogie to a Stupinian and Mittelmer. I'll probably go one of those 2 ways. Of course, the benefit is that you have 2 game weeks to decide which of those 2 kind of routes suits you better. But you've got those options. You're open. You're kind of flexible in what you can kind of do, but you could still have your eye on those 2 players and just figure out who you're going to be bringing in there. But guys, we are going to leave the team there. I feel like I've said enough about this team and the strategizing around it and some alternatives. But yeah, remember guys, if you want to check out this tool, which I think is super, super useful for your FPL teams, it is in the top of the description, and it's Fantasy Football Hub's My Team tool. So go ahead and check that out if you want to do a little bit of planning around your wildcard yourself. I know it's been super helpful for me planning my wildcard teams personally. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. If you did enjoy, do drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here as well. Really, really appreciated all of the support on the channel recently. But aside from that, guys, I will see you tomorrow for a transfers tier list video, as well as a strategy stream, which we'll do on Monday evening after the Chelsea game. So look forward to that one as well. Looking forward to having a chat with you guys. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.